Hey there, it's Simon Hobbs here, or Si, or Sime, or Simesy, whatever you like. And the conversation came up in Slack today about grouping fields together and having them repeating on a node or in another field. So say you've got some cards and then you have a card component, and that card repeats, but that card has multiple fields. And it seems like world-class content management system. We'd want to see that in Drupal core. It's not in Drupal core. So I want to talk today about the problem. I want to just make sure we understand it, and then I'm going to look at some modules that are available, and I want to look at how they impact the file, how they impact the database as we build out our content model. So just so that we have a really clear understanding of, what matters most to us is how our data is stored. So we want to see the data in a way that feels sane to us. So let's have a look at a few different options. So first, let's talk about the problem. So we have this, we have a node here. This is Drupal core. It's got three custom fields that I'm showing here: a body and a reviewed date, and then a tags field, which is multi-value. So there's just a simple setting, and then you can add as many tags as you want. And Drupal core supports that fine. Lives in a database, very normalized. Now, a bit of disambiguation here. If we look at the this node layout, we're using layout builder for the node layout, and what we have here is the node fields are put into the layout, and then we can add other custom block plugins to that layout. So we have a combination of two things going on here. We have fields from the content itself, and then we have things that we're putting into the layout. So an example of where we want to have multiple grouped fields would be in components. So here we have a node and we have a cards component. I'm not getting too much into the content modeling here. There are different ways to do this, but so we have a node, we have a cards component, and then each individual card is a paragraph. And so the paragraph, being a card, has a headline and an image and a link. And then we can repeat those. So each paragraph is a card, and it gets repeated on the field, which is an entity reference field. So many sites, like simple blog sites, and up to a certain scale, paragraphs works really well. And the problems occur when it gets used beyond that scale. Now, technically, this green paragraphs, this line here, technically this is a redundant line, and it's an extra layer of entities and APIs and rendering and so forth that really we shouldn't necessarily need, because each of these paragraphs has a one-to-one relationship with the node that it lives on. We typically don't share our paragraphs. They don't get reused in other places. So when we delete the node, we delete all the paragraphs. Now, a situation where we're a fairly busy site, then maybe there's 20 editors and someone's updating regularly, making small incremental changes to a node that has 200 paragraphs. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to happen. There's pre-saves, post-save hooks. It's going to get indexed, so it gets rendered in order to get indexed into Solr or wherever. And then say if you've got revisions, so every time you save that new version, it's going to save every single paragraph gets a new revision to go along with the parent revision. So that each 200 of those paragraphs all get new revisions. It is really not uncommon to have websites that have really big design systems implemented with paragraphs as components, for them to have like gigabytes of field data just for specific paragraphs, and so you get these performance bottlenecks, you get these storage problems, you can get kind of weird bugs. So you might be using a module that's going to have to display some paragraphs, and then it's showing, like, instead of showing the published version, it's showing the new draft version, or vice versa. And then there's also this tendency to have like a page with a 2-column layout, a node with 2-column component layout, and then each of those columns might have some cards inside, and you start getting lots of nested paragraph types and a lot of permutations around how editors can put content together, which you just haven't covered in your styling of your website. So the ideal situation we want to get to is where we don't have that intermediate paragraphs, whether it works or not, or it's a great module and It's used by so many people. Ideally, we don't have that abstraction layer between our node and some components, some random components on the node. Let's look at this. Let's look at something that we can download from Drupal.org today. It's been around for ages, something like the geofield module. And that provides a field type, which can say we might add a location field to our content. And so we can repeat it if we want, but every repetition of that field value has to have a lat, a long, maybe an altitude. So on our behalf, that geofield module is providing a custom field, and that custom field is providing like composite scalar values, like so combined together, and then we can set that to repeat. The problem that we get is when we want to define our own composite field types that, based on our designs or whatever. And so we start having this idea of being able to just construct our own field types the way we would construct an entity type. And while I'm doing this video, I also want to just touch on the layout builder situation. So if you're using layout builder for everything, you don't really have this problem, because you might have a cards component, a cards plugin, and you're simply in your layout, just, you're putting that component wherever you want to put it, whichever region you want to put it in. Now, the downside of that is you sort of lose something in terms of your semantic content modeling. So if you were to load this node, then it doesn't really have any content, so to speak. It has a layout with a whole bunch of stuff in it, but what is the node itself? The ideal situation is that, the node has a certain number of fields, and that those fields are the content of the node. And then you simply using layout builder to place those fields in the layout. And so to me personally, from a content modeling point of view, there's this perfect combination of nodes and their fields, and then layout builder for how you display things, which then lets you add random call to actions or pieces of content which don't really live on the node itself. So that if you took away the layout, you've still got the content, and then the content is not sort of polluted with layout and design. Okay, let's have a look at the modules we're going to look at today. The field collection module, we're not going to install today. It's Drupal 7. Field collection is basically the Drupal 7 version of what we're trying to do. So just thought I'd just show that. This is kind of like, in some ways, it's like the missing module for Drupal 10, or the unfound module, what is going to be the superstar replacement for field collection. That said, field collection had a pretty bad reputation in terms of creating really complex site builds and being very hard to manage. We're going to start with, for Drupal 10, for Drupal current, we're going to start with Flexfield. And that's going to give us a baseline for a composite field module that doesn't give us fine-tuned control over the database schema itself. Then we're going to have a look at double field, and double field is more or less what we want, but it only gives you 2 fields. So it'd be really interesting to have a look at that one. And then custom field has been around since for a while now. So it's had a couple of different releases, and this is going to be really interesting. It's got control over the database design, how the fields are represented in the database, and I'm pretty optimistic about this one. And then the field union construction kit is like a module that's sat in the sandbox for a while and is getting some work at the moment. And I understand it's very similar to custom field in some ways, but it uses the APIs differently. So we're going to be really keen to have a look at that module and see what it does. So here's the website that we're going to be working on today. This is the free source website, which is the code for which is open source. We're going to be working on, say, the page content type. Page content type currently has 3 fields: a markup field, a hero field, and a lead field. And if we go and have a look in our reports, let me just hide that sidebar for a second, and we look at the field list, we can see that these fields are shared across multiple content types. So just to give you a sense of what's going on there. And then if we go into the database, so shared across multiple content type. So we'll have a look at the lead field, the summary field, and you can see that it's being used on node 1, node 2, node 3, which are page content types, and 4 and 5, which are article. And basically it's pretty simple. It's like, here's the format for technically this is a composite field because it needs a column to manage the format of the field, so which filter is using, and it needs a field to manage the value of the field, and then plus it's got a delta, even though they're single-use fields. If it was changed to multiple, each of the values would get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the delta. So what we're going to be seeing as we add fields is we're going to see extra tables being created here, and we're going to compare them to our existing tables. Now, I was just having a look at Flexfield first, and it turns out that I can't actually install Flexfield. It must be incompatible with the latest version of Drupal 10. Flexfield, I kind of am aware that I've assessed it, and if it's the same module that I'm thinking of, all of the fields that it creates in the table are always text, and no matter what you use it for, and you can kind of control what the widgets are, but all the fields are stored as text. And I wanted to show you that, but I'm not even able to install the field at this stage, so I'm going to skip Flexfield. And while I'm here, I notice I've got custom field and double field, and where is union field? Union field is a config entity, so we'll get to that in a second. So the next one, let's go with double field, and let's try that. So I'll just go double field as I got custom field, double field, and union field. So double field's going to be DF, and we hit continue. And we see that you can see that we have two fields, first subfield and second subfield. Now, prominent on the page of this website of this module is don't ask for a third field, because it's clearly a double field module and not a triple field module. And I'm fine with that. That flies with me. So we're going to have a text type, and we're going to have something a bit different. Let's do a URL. So I have a text and a URL. And I'm not gonna total number of digits to store in the database. This is where it gets really interesting when you got these modules that when you save this and create it, they often will have like overlapping things that don't have anything to do with certain types of fields. So we're just gonna. So I mean, date type only. So this is only if you've chosen a date field and asked for the date and time data only. So I don't really care about those settings. I am really interested to see how this winds up in the database. So we refresh our tables, and we can see we have the new a new field called node DF. So this is the first time that I've looked at the double field module, and there's some goods and the bads. The first thing is that this is better than paragraphs module in one sense, and that sense is that yes, we don't have the entity, and also we don't have a lot of tables to store the data. So we've got one table for the field and another table for the field revision. So what this means is that you got the single table, and each of those two fields is a column in the table. And then on the downside is that the columns are just varchars. So in other words, if I was to change a column from an integer to a date or something like that, well, it's easy for the module. It doesn't have to do a database schema update to change the values of to change the schema of those fields. It doesn't have to manage what happens with the content that goes, to if it needs to be converted or not. It pretty much just asks you what your widgets are. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a composite field table that in the database is going to store the fields in the schema the schema of the columns is going to match what I'm storing, if that makes sense. All right, next is the custom field. So let's do CF for custom field. And field storage, these settings apply to CF everywhere it's used. That's fine. Custom field items, machine readable name is value. So let's change that. Let's change that to, let's make a heading. Text plain, that seems pretty good. We don't want, let's have a look at the field types that it offers us. So it offers us a few different field types. Does it offer text long? Does it offer formatted text? I'm not actually sure if it does. So I don't see here the ability to have like a CK editor WYSIWYG on the text. We're just going to do, so I'm just going to do text. I'm going to do text long and see if it does offer us that ability at a later point. Let's add another. This one, so we've added another field. This one, first one's called heading. The second one we want to call, link. And this one, let's see, do we get a URI? So we get a URI. Yeah. So we got heading, link, URI. Let's add one more. And for this one, let's see if we can add like an image or something like that, or an entity reference effectively, which is what a media is going to be. It should be an entity reference. So I click add another. Now at this point it seems to be having an error and it doesn't seem to want to proceed. Placeholder, nothing's required there. Before, after, size of text field, nothing's required there. There we go. So we actually had a HTML5 error that was blocking. So value must be less or equal to 254. So let's just drop that down a little bit. And we'll try and save. Okay, so there was like an error was happening in the background, and that's just showing up on the page there. Let's go back into our custom field and let's just see if we can add a third field now. So add another. And we can, that's great. And it's asking us for a machine readable name. Always set the machine readable name. And for this one, we're going to see if we can do an image. So let's just do a hero image. Let's choose entity reference. And I'm going to choose media. Okay, here's our type. So we're going to allow them to choose an image from the library. Okay, so we've now saved that. We've saved our field that has 3 fields on it. And let's go and have a look in the database. You see here, I haven't even looked at the widgets. I don't even kind of care about how it's going to be rendered. I figure it's going to be basically usable. Maybe when I want to like see the editor usability at a later point, I'm going to have a bit of a look. But you can see that to me, the thing that will burn me the most in the future is going to be my data. You know, if I need to change a widget or, you know, write a new widget, that's just a tweak and you're just changing the field settings, or changing the display of something is just changing it. But when you have to change your data, you have to be writing update hooks and things that are going to fix your data, and testing and deploying is just so much more complex. And, you know, you want to get that part right before other things. I might differ from other people on that note, but it's pretty important to me. So yeah, we go in and we look at, we've got a new table. So good, we've got, similar to the DF one, we've got a new table that's just for this field. And you can see this is looking better. Like, so we've got, there's our machine name. So it's building the machine name based on the machine name of the field, which is CF, and then the machine name of the column heading. We can see we've got a link, and we can see we've got a hero. I think I want to see some of this data populated. So let's go ahead and just create some content. And let's go to the free source page, and let's edit that page. We should see our 2 new fields. Sorry about the sidebar and stuff. I actually want to fix that, put it at the top. So here's our DF field. So we'll populate this for the heck of it. So we've got first, second, that's our double field, sorry. And here's our custom field. I might want to just double check that before I kind of mislead anyone about it, but it looks like it doesn't support formatted text. So let's just chuck a link in there. And then for the image, and again, so this is just letting me cut autocomplete. I kind of don't care. Like, I want to have a media library on it. I personally know that I probably can put a media library on it because I've worked with fields and field widgets in the past, and so I'm not. That's obviously not very usable. That the user has to like autocomplete that you'd want to pop up with a media browser. That's not a problem for me. I'm more interested in seeing how it stores the data. So let's just do example.com. Okay, and let's have a look at the data. Yeah, that's cool. So, you know, so we are referring to some media there. So we do want it to just be the ID of the media. And probably for something like this, do we care about the revision of the media? Arguably no, sometimes yes. So we've got our link there, and we've got our heading text there. I'm just going to do one more check, and I'm just going to double check that that whether we can or can't control the format of that text field. Does it enable WYSIWYG here? Okay, so it does give us that WYSIWYG options. Right, so yeah, it's not bad. That's fine. I do wonder where it's going to store what the solution was. So let's save that. But yeah, there's nowhere that it's storing the format of the text, so it's like a simplified version of a text field you'd normally have, where you've got formatted text, because it has a separate column for storing the format for the text. That's not bad. That's actually, to me, that's actually pretty good. To me, this is giving me like a minimally viable control over the field types, the types of content being stored in the fields. And to be honest, like I don't need it to dynamically change if I change something. Like that's going to be pretty locked in because there's an API with Drupal where the module is basically saying to Drupal, I've got this field. I want to add this field to this content type, and here's the format, here's the type of data that it's going to be stored. And then Drupal goes off and updates the database tables. And when you want to change that, Drupal will never just magically change it. You have to have, your module has to have all of the update smarts to basically copy the data out of that column, which might be a big table, create the new column, and then copy the data back into that column. And you think, what if you're copying text into a number field? What actually happens? So the fact that it's not allowing me to change that field after I've created, I'm okay with that. For components, I'm rarely going to do that. So I'm not, I don't hate this. I think this is actually pretty viable and pretty viable solution. All right, now let's go and see if we can set up our union field and see what that provides. No field unions yet, add a field union. Okay, so we're going to do this. So it seems like this is where we can compose our field types. So what we're going to do is we're going to just give them some weird names. So I'm going to name this field type boba, and so initial field. So the first field that we're going to add is going to be a text field. Now this is what I see here immediately is this is like au natural field API. Okay, you got all the different types of fields that are available when you add a new field. So minus the cool new dashboard UI where you can choose the field type. I'm sure they'll add that. So drop that down. I'm going to choose text plain. The initial field label is going to be, so for my first field, let's call it just plain text. Again, it doesn't really matter. I just want to be able to see it in the database. So I've got my plain text field and save that. And then when I add a field, I'm going to add let's add a media field. So add a media field, media hero. Add that. And I've got to say, already I'm liking this. This is already feeling kind of right. So plain text, media hero, and we've got some URL. So I'm really taking care. I've called this boba and I've called this some URL. I'm going to be really keen to see what happens in the database tables for this. And so for my URL, I want my eyes deceive me. Where have we got link? Cool. And again, this is just standard field config. Okay, so there's my new, so if I go and have a look at my field unions, I've now got a field union called this. Oh, I love it. I love the centralized way this is managing. I really could get behind this. I really like it. So there's our new field type. Now, let us go to our content types, our page manage fields, and we've got the CFDF and create a new field, and let's call it fet. And what's the type? So here's our field union. So now that we've created a new field union type, we can then choose which one that we want to use. So very nice, very nice. And there's our field. And we'll just go into our content, and we'll go right from the very start. Let's actually edit this content. Let's add some content to our new field. Okay, so we've got this fet. It's got, okay, it looks like we might need to configure the form. So I think it was under structure. There's structure, field unions. There you go. Well, I'll never forget that again, I'm sure. Structure field unions, manage form display. Cool. As I suspected. So here's my form display. Lovely. Now, I wonder if it does view modes. Let's go back to that fields unions. Manage display. It doesn't seem to support display modes, but yeah, that's fine. We're just interested if that was something that it could do. We can manage the order of the fields, which is fine, which is good. But usually for components like this, you end up getting in the twig. You end up completely controlling the rendering. It just depends on your team, how you like to work. I didn't save that before, so I'll just save that again. And then now we should be able to go back to our content. Free source. Ooh, well, that's just an intermittent bug. I'm going to jump into the database and I'm going to have a look. This is a module. This is a work in progress module. So let's just have a look. Let's consider this a UX review of the module. And let's go into the database and have a look at the field. So what we should see is our new FET table, and God, I'm probably misspelling Boba Fett, but hey, I'm not a Star Wars fan, so shoot me. Okay, so I've got this new table. What have we got here? We've got the name of the field, the machine name of the composite field within it, and then what you see here is value is what you would see with this field in another location. You get the value, underscore value. Likewise, if we've got like Media Hero target ID, now we should have, so we've got the plain text value. I think we stored that as plain text, so it's not giving us the format. But in terms of, say, the some URL URI and some URL title, if you were to just add a normal link field, you get these 3 fields. Okay, so this is using purely how the field's defined at the API level, and simply it's adding all of the comments for all of those fields. And then likewise with the previous module custom field, it won't let us change this just flippantly. So we're not going to be able to just jump into the UI and change this. This has kind of been set now. Has it been set now? Let's go and have a look at what that means for it to be actually set now. If I go into the field union, locked, yes. So as soon as you use that field type, it's locked. And that doesn't mean that if you're working in a big team, you're just going to write the update scripts and stuff like that to unlock it and to change it. But it's now locked in the UI from a site building point of view, and that is fine. So all in all, while I didn't hate the custom field module, I thought it would be minimally viable. This union field module is something that I plan to use. I noticed that there's new development on it. I'm keen to see how that plays out, maybe even get involved myself and start to use it, because I think that this is the gap, and this is, unless anyone wants to comment on the video and say, hey, you missed one, or contact me as Simon in Slack and let me show me another module that does similar to this, then to me that this is where it's at. This is what it needs to be in terms of being the ultimate composite field tool for Drupal. Also, if you're watching this video in a little bit in the future, I do believe it's changing its name to composite field. So just bear that in mind as well. It's currently in development, and so this video might be out of date in a week's time or a month's time. But anyway, that's all, and I think I can wrap this up to here. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.